Welcome to the NFT Finance Podcast, sponsored by Goldman Sachs. My name is Terry, and I'm joined by my co-host Helmus. And today we welcome Henry and David from ParaSpace, a universal liquidity lending protocol.
Hey guys, welcome on. Before we jump into ParaSpace, Henry and David, if you could give me just our listeners a little bit about your background and how you got into crypto and NFTs.
Yeah,
David,
absolutely.
do you want to go first?
Yeah, let's do it. First, thanks, gents, for having us on. Really excited. A big fan of the cast of the podcast. So, and big fan of NFT finance in general. So, my story is actually one. I'm a TradFi guy. I had been working in derivatives trading, specifically FX, commodities, stocks, things like this, for the better part of 2 decades. And then back in 2017, the product lead for a research service, and crypto starts blowing up, and I say, all right, well, we have to dedicate a lot of space to it. Was at the time it was Ether, Bitcoin, and Litecoin and Ripple, and this is such a nascent space that I personally had to do a ton of research to even figure out what the heck we would even say about all this stuff. So I do the deep dive, and I think Bitcoin is just fantastic. I'm just like, this is amazing. This thing didn't exist before. No one, was running it, but it has value. And unfortunately, I'm a conviction investor, and I thought of it kind of as digital gold. So much to my detriment, I didn't hodl Bitcoin at all. ETH, on the other hand, I thought was super fascinating. Like, Bitcoin is like the OG, obviously, and I have a lot of respect for it. But ETH, it's the iPhone of crypto. It's like you can build anything, and smart contracts. Just like light bulb went off. I was like, this is legit. So I'd love to tell you that I bought all the ETH I could at low triple digits, or even in some cases double digits. I bought enough, but not enough, obviously. And there was a long crypto winter in between. I didn't really pay attention until 2021 again. If I'm being totally honest, when I bought some NFTs late 2021, and the rest is history. I think the technology is just amazing. And, I joined Parallel Finance and ParaSpace exactly to build, because I think this is the future of finance and how we transact value in the real world. Henry, over to you.
Yeah, nice, man. So, my name is Henry, and I am the marketing manager for Parallel Finance and ParaSpace. So I'm pretty young. I'm 25 years old. So I basically got into crypto when I bought my first Bitcoin during college time, and that was back in 2018, something like that. And then I didn't really pay much attention back then. I just thought, maybe like I can make money off of this thing. But I then, from 2018 to around 2020, I just gradually start to learn about what blockchain is and stuff like that, and then really got back into crypto around 2021 when just doing degen stuff, learning about all the shit coins, and start to get involved in crypto Twitter, and then I joined Parallel Finance and ParaSpace this year around June. So yeah, that's basically my story.
That's awesome. Thanks, guys. And maybe we could talk about just high level, what is ParaSpace, and what inspired you both to begin working at ParaSpace specifically? And maybe we can start with you, Henry. So let's actually do it in this order. So what inspired you to begin working at ParaSpace? And then after you guys run through that, we can go into what is ParaSpace specifically.
Yeah, definitely. So I joined like Parallel Finance and ParaSpace. I joined Parallel Finance first. So because I just start to discover the Polkadot space, and I feel that it's pretty young, and a lot of energy going on over there. So a friend of mine like introduced me to the founder of Parallel Finance, Yubo, and we had a really good chat. So I just joined the team because I got a pretty good understanding of the crypto culture and everything. So it's a pretty natural progression. And then later, like the team has been working on ParaSpace for quite some time, and then I thought, actually, the Ethereum side is actually more of my like my place, like because the Ethereum culture and Polkadot culture is a little bit different, and I think especially on the NFT side, I think the potential here is definitely super large, and I'm just super glad that I can get involved into such a promising like sector at a such early stage. Yeah,
That's the point. On my end, it was relatively straightforward, actually. I mean, I'd taken the leap from my old job in derivatives trading, and I was a product lead at an NFT startup, an NFT collection, actually, one you would have heard of. And as I'm working there, I'm like, you know what, NFTs are amazing, but I really love what's going on in DeFi specifically, and I love the marriage between those two things. So I had a great experience there, and it was my first foray into crypto. But then Parallel Finance and then ParaSpace came along, and I clicked. Our founder Yubo, really sharp dude. Just boy genius. Stanford dropout. Like all the memes, but the dude's legit. And the first things he tells me is like, look, our vision is to bring DeFi to 1 billion people. And I was like, that's legit. Like that's like a core part of my thesis. What excites me about crypto is to bring it to the masses. And then we started talking, actually a lot like Henry. I'm quite familiar with Polkadot and the Polkadot, the parachain ecosystem, Sama. But like Henry, I think Ethereum is where it's at. I mean, it's the home of DeFi, it's the OG of DeFi, and by far the biggest TVL. So earlier on in our conversation, I said, Yubo, I think what you guys are doing is amazing, but I really prefer Ethereum. It's like, yeah, but we're going to build this new NFT protocol on Ethereum. I was like, fantastic, let's go. So suffice to say, it was, we just clicked, and it's been really exciting going deep on this. And let's be clear, we're starting with, ARN collectibles, so apes, punks, doodles, you name it. But the vision is still to bring DeFi to 1 billion people. So if you can get it on chain, we want to extend capital efficiency to it. We don't want you sitting there with like hundreds of ETH in NFTs that you can't even touch, because to get that ETH back, you'd have to sell it. That's what we're here for. And those NFTs are the start, but we're gonna move on to much bigger businesses as the the industry goes on chain.
Awesome. And then, guys, if you can talk to maybe your view of the current state of of like NFT lending platforms today, and specifically, like, what are some of the challenges that lending protocols face right now?
So I think so this was like really my entry into this entire space, was looking at NFT Fi and another couple big protocols, and I think they've done awesome work. But there are a couple key limitations, or a handful of key limitations, that still leaves a lot of room to be desired. For example, NFT Fi is great if you can find a person to match. It's pure P2P, which is powerful for a lot of things, but there's a ton of friction, and it's hard to really get that critical mass going if every single transaction has to be, request for quote, someone bidding and someone offering, all that. The peer-to-pool offerings that are out there are super interesting and an excellent start. I'm not going to knock them for a second. But for example, right now, the only thing you can do is borrow ETH against specific NFTs, and that's great. But let's put a hypothetical on and say that your ape, the Bored Ape floor price has fallen, and you took out the loan because you didn't have liquidity, and you don't have liquidity, and you're nearing liquidation. You do have a ton of Bitcoin, but you want to hold on to that Bitcoin. Why can't we just accept the Bitcoin as collateral for that loan, and your gravy? And that's exactly what cross margin does. So not only can you post the ape, the punk, the doodle, what have you, as collateral to borrow ETH, Bitcoin, and stables, but you can also say, it's like the bank foreclosing on your house, ignoring the fact that you have a massive savings account at the bank. Like, all right, guys, I have all this stuff on the side. Can't you see that this is also valuable? The lending protocol. That's the biggest one. And also, the bigger vision is to definitely move towards not only art and collectibles, but also financial derivatives. So we've already built out support for Uniswap V3 LP tokens, which we can talk about more in a second. But like, it's that kind of thing that bringing the financialization of all of those on-chain assets into one place is really the missing part of the puzzle.
Awesome. And then maybe you guys do just like we've danced around it enough, just a high level overview of what ParaSpace is.
Yeah, sure. I think I can just take this one. So essentially, ParaSpace is a universal lending protocol or universal financialization protocol for NFTs and ERC20s. That's like at least the current vision for ParaSpace. So essentially, and the important thing here is that our lending model is cross-margin. So instead of isolated margin that is adopted by most existing NFT lending protocols so far. So as David already mentioned, with a cross-margin model, it's suddenly become like much more powerful when it comes to customization for your collateral. And essentially, like, we want to allow our users to use their whole portfolio as a one single credit on ParaSpace, so that they can borrow against their whole portfolio of collaterals and get liquidity from that. Yeah,
Can you guys give
basically
us? Yeah, that works perfectly as a high level overview. I guess, can you guys give us somewhat of an Alice and Bob example of ParaSpace from both a lender and a borrower perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's make it simple. Alice had the foresight to buy ETH when it was under $1,000, or the first time, and had the foresight to buy apes, punks, plural, and in our wallet or wallets has hundreds of ETH in value. But there's an upcoming big mint, or maybe she really wants to ape into like an Azuki Grail or something like this. But to buy it, she would have to liquidate one of her apes, one of her punks, and she's like, I'm not going to do that. Well, that's where we come in. And on the other side, you have Bob, who has high conviction hodls in ETH, maybe staked ETH, Bitcoin, or even stables. We're not going to discriminate, and he doesn't want to sell them, but they're just sitting there, not being productive. It's like he has money under his mattress. That's not very useful. So Bob says, "Hey, Alice, I'm willing to lend you the ETH or the stables that you need in response for the as long as you put that rare ape or what have you as collateral." And suddenly you have a two-sided market where Alice is able to ape into Renga or whatever the hot new mint is without having to touch her existing without having to offload some of her prized possessions. And at the same time, Bob loves it because that wrap Bitcoin that he had there was not earning a penny in yield, and suddenly it is. So that's really the power of this cross-margin lending protocol to make a really valuable two-sided market.
Awesome. And just curious, like what type of NFTs could I, supply as collateral? And how is that determined?
Yeah. So right now, I mean, unsurprisingly, we have the focus on the most liquid collections and the most valuable. So it's gonna be the blue chips. I've said apes and punks a billion times. Doodles, Meebits, what are the other ones? Mutants, and a handful more. And that's really because as a pool-based protocol, we need to make sure that those collections are sufficiently liquid. However, we're already building towards the V2, where we'll be able to support longer tail assets, and obviously reward lenders for the additional liquidity risk. But yeah, that's the big one right now, just the liquidity.
Could you explain to us the concept of credit lines?
Yeah. So basically, credit line you can see as a numerical representation of how much value of assets you are able to borrow with your collateral. So, for example, if you supply like one BAYC, one MAYC, and then maybe 20 ETH, for example, and then since we are using this cross margin model, all of these collaterals will generate you one credit line, and this credit line, let's say it's like 70 ETH, for example, for all of your collaterals, you will be able to borrow any assets as long as its value is lower than 70 ETH. So yeah, so that's basically credit line, and by having this credit line design, not only will you be able to borrow ERC20s on ParaSpace, you can also use that credit for our NFT Pay Later product, for example, which allow you to basically purchase blue chip NFTs off popular NFT marketplaces with your credit line, and sometimes you don't even have to pay a single ETH for it. So essentially, you can use your credit line to pay whatever you want to buy from NFT marketplaces, as long as it's supported collateral on our platform.
Awesome. And I think this is a good segue into I think you were touching on it a bit, but what is the, I guess, like cross margin credit model, and how does this like allow for individuals to hedge on your platform?
Yeah. So basically, we use this term cross margin in a very specific way. We want to differentiate ParaSpace from other existing lending protocols, which mainly are using this isolated margin model. So what does that mean exactly? So for an isolated margin model, you borrow against one single NFT each time. So for example, if you have like one BAYC and one clone X, and you want to collateralize both of them, you have within a isolated margin model, you have to borrow against each of them, and then each of them will have a single health factor, which it's working. I mean, technically, but it has a lot of problems on the UX front, because suddenly the user have to deal with. If it's fine if you are just doing with 2 or 3 collaterals, but if you are a whale like Franklin, for example, you are dealing with tens or even hundreds of blue chip NFTs, you have to manage like a lot of like health factors at the same time, and there's no other way for you to for example, if one of your collateral is the health factor of that collateral is approaching the critical level, you have no other choice other than just pay back the loan. But with this cross margin model, we actually assign you only one like health factor for all of your collaterals at the same time. So that opens up tons of opportunities for you, not only to have a better better capital efficiency, but also it give you a lot of options to protect your collaterals from being liquidated. For example, like you can you can top up your position, for example. You cannot do that with isolated margin model because you essentially only borrow against one single asset at one time. But with cross margin model, you can actually, if your whole position is approaching a critical level, you can actually top it up with more blue chip NFTs, or even with ERC20s, or in the future with Uniswap V3 LPs, etc. Right? So basically, the user have more customization, more room for customization on what collateral they want to use on our platform. And the second point is that I think maybe David, you can give a better explanation like on that. So basically, we allow this inter collection hedging basically. So for example, like even among the blue chip NFTs, different collections, their price movement might be negatively correlated. So yeah. So why don't you take this, David? I'm not really quite sure about the tech detail.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I'm glad you bring it up. I think it's one of the coolest parts about investing in NFTs. So on the one hand, if you're borrowing ETH against NFTs, you don't want it to be super negatively correlated, because if that's true, then the value of your collateral could go way down while ETH goes way up, and vice versa. It'd be bad news if you're borrowing. However, if you look at the correlations between specific collections against each other, and then the correlations of those collection floor prices against other crypto coins, then you start seeing interesting things. So, it's not going to shock you that you're not going to get any diversification, or actually, take a step back. You want to, well, I'm speaking not even in the general case. I'm a conviction investor. I won't buy anything unless I believe pretty strongly in it. But what ends up happening is that you end up buying a lot of the things that look a lot of the same. So that's great when everything's going up. Not as great when things are sideways or down. One of the things as an investor, and this is not original to me by any stretch, is to buy. Okay, you're heavily weighted on tech. Well, maybe take out some, invest in some commodities or something like this. Bring it up. That's the TradFi vision. Bringing it over to crypto. Actually, it turns out that. So I'm looking at it right now. The correlation between punks and and Bitcoin is actually slightly negative. That's interesting. Okay, so you can have that OG crypto view. I'm maybe stretching the term a little bit. So you're a Bitcoin hodler, and you love the OG status of CryptoPunk NFTs. So you want to own both. Actually, it turns out that's a pretty good bet. Obviously, past performance not indicative of future results. My old compliance training is coming into play. Not financial advice in Web3 terms, but it's the kind of thing that's exciting, because you can build that portfolio, that conviction portfolio. In my case, to hold the Bitcoin, hold the punks, and not be super worried that both are going to crash at the same time.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. And then let's jump over into, I think what you have is down payment with credit, which to my understanding is kind of like a BNPL type feature.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah. So actually, buying an NFT with down payment is not like a 100% original idea of ours. There are actually existing lending protocols that allow you to do that. Basically, they allow you to purchase and blue chip NFTs from other NFT marketplaces, and by doing that, at the same time you re-collateralize the NFT you just bought into their platform, and then so essentially you take out another loan against the NFT you just bought, so that you can only pay maybe like 60% of the total amount, and then you can pay the rest later. However, with ParaSpace, we are allowing to not only just doing down payment, but actually down payment with credit. So not only will you be able to re-collateralize the NFT you just bought, but even for the rest, the amount that on other NFT lending protocol, you have to you have to actually pay ETH out of your pocket. You can on ParaSpace, you can actually pay with a credit on our platform, since we're using this cross margin lending model. Because with a cross margin lending model, like everything can be used to generate you the credit line. But for isolated margin model, you can only deal with one single collateral at one time. So that's why like cross margin lending model is super powerful on this front, is that it allows you a lot of room to do other things with this credit line. So it basically it's like it's you can see it as a pawn shop that allow you to, they accept a lot of different type of things, and then they can just give you cash for whatever you are collateralizing or you are borrowing against. So with the credit line, you can actually use that for on other marketplaces just to buy NFTs. So that's how we enable this 0% down payment option. It's not available anywhere else on the market right now.
That was helpful. And then let's talk about liquidations for a second. So, I think how most of these like peer-to-pool products worked is there's a health factor, and once the health factor is breached, a liquidation occurs. And you guys have this interesting feature called like a blended Dutch auction. Maybe if you can give just a high-level overview of how that works and how it's different from maybe what exists today.
Yeah, definitely. So before we go into the blended Dutch auction model that we designed, why don't we just take a step back, and I will explain what Dutch auction is first. So basically, the current like liquidation auction model adopted by most other lending protocols right now, it's called English auction, which is it's a ascending price auction basically. So the bidder will play. There is a reserve price, and each following bidder will need to pay a higher price of like comparing to the previous bidder. So and the last bidder pay the highest price is gonna win the auction. But with this Dutch auction model, it's actually a descending price model. Basically, we have a high we have a high point for this price, and then the price will gradually go down, and then whenever when basically the bidder can bid whenever they want. When they see the price is reasonable to them, they can place the bid, and they will automatically win the bid. So for Dutch auction, there's only one bid, but for English auction, there are multiple bids, and that's why So comparing to English auction, Dutch auction actually have a few advantage. The first one is that obviously there's no bidding war on Dutch auction, because it's only one time bid. As long as you like the price right now, you can just pay the bid, and you immediately win the bid. But on English auction, obviously, like when the bidding war comes up, people just keep bidding and bidding. That's a waste of time, and we think like for the liquidation model for any lending protocol, the top priority is that we want the price discovery to be as efficient as possible. So yeah, so that's Dutch auction. But for us, we have designed, because we want to we want to maximize this efficiency for price discovery even more. So we changed this Dutch auction model a little bit, where because for NFTs it's a little bit different from traditional auction, because NFT within the same collection, there are actually the price difference between different NFTs within the same collection can vary a lot. For example, if you own a gold ape or just a floor ape, the floor price can be 5x or 10x different. So what we did is actually we have this we basically studied the history of the price action of the whole collection, for example, BOIC, and then we have modeled out like what is the highest possible price the NFT of this collection can be sold for, and what is the a more central area which the a more central price area which most sale happen. So then for this more long tail price range, we use this more like accelerated price decreasing. So and then but for this more central price range, we use this gradual decreasing of the this linear model of price decreasing, so that we want to make sure that for those rare NFTs, there is we have this time period where the price actually makes sense. But then for the more concentrated central price range, we have this linear model where people can bid comfortably within a longer period of time. I mean, I think maybe David, you can give it a more better explanation.
No. Well, I think you actually explained it quite well. And David, if you want to jump in, but the way I understand it in my head is basically the switch from like the exponential decline to the linear decline effectively allows for better price discovery. Is that more or less am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so the short answer is yes. But, at a high level, let's talk outcomes here. So I'm not going to talk about charts on a podcast because it's annoying when people do. But let's talk about, okay, ultimately what we're interested in is getting the right price for this NFT. The loan went bad, which unfortunately happens. No one wants to liquidate anyone's, prized NFTs, but you have to. It's just the nature of a collateralized lending protocol. However, the challenge is that we don't know exactly what price we're going to get for it. That's why we're experimenting, or we built this novel liquidation model. So I'm looking at stats right now. So for apes, about 75% of all ape transactions that I measured over the course of about a year, 75% of those sales, we're talking about 27,000 sales analyzed, fell within 20% of the collection's floor price, which is great. I mean, floors, turns out, everyone talks about floor, but turns out that it's for good reason. However, you don't want to, so going back to what Henry was talking about, if someone has a rare ape, I mean, a gold ape would be substantially more expensive. I don't suspect that many people will collateralize their gold apes for loans, but say they did. Well, we want to allow for the fact that this is a valuable ape. So the Dutch auction, which has descending prices, will start to cycle through different prices, different buy it now prices at an exponential rate to cycle through those, relatively lofty but still reasonable estimates for what the thing could get. And then eventually, once we near floor price, so at about 120% of floor price, which is again that magic 20% number, we'll drop to a slower linear decay, which says, all right, we'd like you to think about each of these prices a little bit better. Whereas exponential is a little bit faster to see, to really test the market, to see if this is a rare ape or a grail of some other collection. Give people the opportunity to buy it at that price. However, we want to focus, once we get within what we know is the prime selling range. All right, let's be a little bit more deliberate about this, and that's the split Dutch auction.
I want to transition a little bit into asking you guys' opinion of the general NFT finance market. How do you see it progressing over the next 12 to say 24 months?
I'll take it. I think the big thing is that we're going to lose the training wheels and we're going to hit product market fit is one thing. it still feels really antiquated. I mean, myself as an NFT degen, to have a bunch of NFTs sitting idly it just feels like inefficient. It's like putting money under your mattress. Yeah, they'll be safe, but you also can't use any of that value in anything else. So the training wheels come off. You see a lot more novel lending techniques. Obviously, ParaSpace, forefront there, cross margin, but also another huge thing is that we keep talking about NFT degens, and NFTs as a technology can support way more than just art and collectibles. So I think that's going to be a huge deal. I'm looking at market sizing, and right now, art and collectibles, depending on which day you look at them, is at about a market size of 25 billion. Now compare that to the scale of financial derivatives in TradFi, 12.4 trillion. We've already built out support for Uniswap v3 LP tokens, which is a novel change. We'll be the first protocol that I know of to support it. But also, we're building support for everything. I think that's going to be the biggest thing. As more and more things go on chain, you're going to see NFT financialization and lending to be substantially more important in terms of even real world assets.
What's next on the roadmap, and how can people get involved in the project?
So this one's easy. The vision of a parent company, Parallel Finance, is straightforward. Bring DeFi to 1 billion people. And you asked me earlier in the conversation, it's like, what NFT collections do you support? And unfortunately, it's relatively limited right now, which is the opposite of what we want to do. The biggest thing is to open up borrowing and lending against a much wider range of assets. So we're already very hard at work. I've been working on a white paper for the past few weeks to talk about novel ways to open up, to keep a ton of the benefits of the pool system, which I think is, and the cross-margin system in particular, to really open up capital efficiency, but also don't restrict it to the 20, 30,000 people who own these blue chip NFTs. That's the opposite of what we want to do. That's the biggest part of where we want to expand to next. Henry, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you are trying to get involved into ParaSpace, we are actually, so I think by the time this podcast go live, so I think probably we are already going to have our testnet open, and we are going to have a testnet campaign where, by testing stuff, you can earn an NFT. But you will just follow our Twitter and follow our progress, and we will let you know.
Awesome. Thank you guys for your time today, and listeners, go check out ParaSpace.
Cheers, guys. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Follow me on Twitter. I'm 0xTayTayHoho on Twitter. That's Tay with an E. And you can follow Ryan at _Helmass.
Yeah, and that's _HELMASS. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll catch you soon.